I have a reoccurring theme of guilt of being my authentic self and being successful in the real world. And I would like to take an emotional journey to rid myself of that so I can prosper and be successful and be the loving, authentic person of love and joy that I am in the real world, in my daily routine.
All right. Well, it's helpful when you say, I'm doing this thing that I don't want to do. And so we can be helpful by saying, well, don't do that.
Right. Yes.
But give us an example of how it plays out so that we can talk about what you might do differently.
Okay. Well, I have a goal. I allow myself to have $10 million with ease. When I work on that goal, I think of my family. And if I had $10 million, what would I do with that money and how would my family react to that money? Well, my family would be holding me in a certain space, or I would feel guilty for having the success in the money, where they would be jealous or judge me or, just have emotional issues over it. I feel guilty if I'm successful. That's the bottom line.
Well, you've done the best job of anyone we've ever heard of explaining why you're not letting the $10 million come.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your pre-paving vision, you're imagining having the money, you're imagining them freaking out about it, you're imagining it destroying your relationship, you're imagining all of the reasons that it wouldn't work, you're imagining them behaving in the way you think they would behave. Mm-hmm. And so what you're literally doing is just saying, universe, I would like $10 million, but frankly it would be too much trouble, so never mind.
Okay.
And the thing that's really interesting about this, and we are appreciating very much your openness about this, because people do this exact same thing all the time. But you're wise in understanding that you must clean up your vibration relative to other people before you can be the creator of anything. In other words, if you want to really carry that to an extreme, then you shouldn't be very happy either, because they're not usually. And you shouldn't really be very helpful because they're healthy, because they're not usually either. And so you need to set goals of sickness and poverty and unhappiness in order to blend with the others who seem to surround you, you see. And of course we're taking this to an absurd extreme, but it sort of is the way it's pointed, isn't it?
Correct.
The other option is understanding that if you are able to do the only work that you have to do, which is to line up the energy within you, and then you realize, so I imagine myself having an abundance of money or an abundance of happiness or abundance of whatever. Mm-hmm. And I imagine my family, and it's not hard to do, responding in the way I know that they probably would. And we say, well, now there's where you've got to do something different with your vibration. Mm-hmm. So the way we like to say it these days is, make a decision and then line up with the decision that you've made. So now let's think about the options here, and let's take the options that you have laid out here. Let's offer two options. I can be the happy recipient of $10 million. So let's just play with that for a minute. Now, once you've decided that you want the universe to yield to you $10 million for starters, so as you say, all right, I've made the decision, I want $10 million to come. Mm-hmm. Now, you think about the $10 million and you imagine your lifestyle and the changes. And then you imagine your family responding to that. And right away you feel discord. Well, you've got to clean up that vibration. In other words, once you make a decision, then you've got to find a way of being in alignment with that decision. So it could go two ways. You could make the decision to have the $10 million for starters and come into alignment with it, and we'll show you how to do that. Or you could decide, it's too big of a current for me, there's too much negative repercussions for me to have this kind of wealth and still have the relationship with the people that I love, so I'm choosing a simpler lifestyle. And we have to say that your happiness is not dependent upon choosing one or the other. Your happiness is dependent upon lining up with whichever one you choose. Now, people worry about this just a little bit, because people are afraid that if they line up with what is, then that's like saying to the universe, I'm happy with what is, you don't ever have to give me anything else. But that isn't the way it works. There are 3 steps to the process. You can't help but continue to ask for what you're wanting, and when you line up with what is, you take the angst and the contradiction and the resistance out of your energy field, and then what you really want can flow in. So let's assume that you've decided that you're going to go with letting abundance of dollars flow to you easily. And now the first thought that comes to you is, who is it that stands out in your mind? Who in your family do you think, you don't need to mention them by name, but maybe by occupation or sibling status, who is going to feel the most discomfort in your success?
A female.
So can you imagine this person differently? Can you tell a story that's different than the way the story has been told already? In other words, there's this action journey that sort of taught you the way this person is probably going to respond.
Right.
But do you have the ability to tell it in a different way?
I'm willing to. I've never done it before, but I'm willing to.
Isn't that telling? In other words, I have never made an effort to imagine this person different than she is. That's really that, and so the way she is and my observation of her sets up a vibrational frequency in me that is not serving me very well, and that's why she is so irritating to me, because if she would be different so that I could observe different, then my vibration would automatically be cleaned up. But you've got to do the work, don't you? You've got to clean up, because she's not going to be different for you. No one should have to be different for you. If you need conditions or others to behave differently so that you can feel differently, you're always going to have trouble, because as soon as you get one whipped into shape, another one will pop right up. Or they'll meet someone else who is a greater sphere of influence, and then they will gravitate to their needs rather than to yours, and you're...
Okay, well, the core issue is she makes me feel guilty for being successful.
Let's say that in a more empowering way. So she makes me feel, she hurts my feelings, she makes me feel, and we want you to get to the place where your feelings are not hurtable. We want you to practice your relationship with your money with her in mind, so much in your mind that it does not matter the way she behaves. You're telling a different story within your vibration, you see.
I can do that.
So that's what we want to hear from you here. So you've decided that you're going to have this financial success.
Yes.
And in order to do that, you can feel that you've got to clean up your vibration relative to the way she thinks about you. Now, this is an important distinction. We didn't say she needs to change the way she thinks about you. We said you've got to clean up your vibration about the way she thinks about you. She's going to continue to think about you just like she's been thinking about you in all likelihood. You've just got to find a way of feeling different about the way she thinks about you and your financial success.
I allow myself to have $10 million with ease. I see this person being happy and joyful for my success. I see her supporting me in love and happiness, and I feel safe and secure in giving to her with no conditions, and the energy between us is loving and flowing and joyful.
Yeah, right.
I tried.
Well, those were really good words. They were, and
that's my intention.
And it was a strong effort, and we all applaud you for that. But you might as well have said blah 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 blah, because nothing changed in your vibration. So now, in moving up the emotional scale, so when you think about this particular situation where you're thinking about your success and you're thinking about the way this person would feel about your success, the success you're already having and magnified a lot by the success that's on your doorstep. So what word would you use to describe your emotion when you think about her? Does it feel like
resistance?
Good word. Give us a more specific.
Frustration.
Frustration feels like frustration. Now talk around that. Talk to us, and it's sort of like poking at it with a stick. And the reason that we want you to do this is because it is helpful in the beginning of your deliberate effort to make a move on the emotional scale, to identify where you are. Because if you poke around with it until you're sure that's where the sore spot is, then as you reach for something that is moving up the emotional scale, the feeling of relief is more obvious. So poke at it with a stick a little bit and let us feel
Okay.
whether it is frustration or something.
Okay. Well, it's frustration, and past events have led that if I give freely, it has a repercussion. It's conditional.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the money that you're going to receive, but then you have all intertwined in that the money that you're going to give to them when you receive it. And,
Right.
and we think that what you're actually saying to us is, I want to be abundant.
Yes.
But when I am abundant, those who know me are going to be jealous about my abundance. And so, and then I'm going to feel guilty about their jealousy about my abundance. So then I'm going to give them some money to ease my guilt
Right.
about their jealousy about my abundance. But I'm worried that if I give them money to ease their guilt, that then I'll be opening a whole other door, and
Right.
then I won't be able to close that door,
Right.
and then they'll make all of these demands about me, and we say it's so off balance to begin with. You want to start it in a purer place.
Okay.
So what you want to get to, first of all, we want you to understand that there's no reason for you to feel guilty about the abundance that flows to you. And we want to promise you that in your utilization of abundance, you cannot be depriving anyone else of any. And so this isn't the issue that you're really grappling with. The issue that you're grappling with is that if I allow myself to experience abundance, and I am up close to people, family, who are not allowing themselves to have abundance, now I have to deal with the way they feel about me having abundance. And the choices are very limited. The choices are, I can limit my abundance so that they don't have no reason to feel any comparison about the abundance that I'm letting in, or I can open my valve and allow all kinds of abundance in, and I cannot give a rip about the way they respond to my abundance. Because the other option doesn't work. You can't adjust your vibration in enough different ways. So let's imagine their emotional response to your $10 million winning. And so the first thing you think that they would feel is jealousy about it. And so then you give them some money, and that might soothe them for a little while. And then the next thing you imagine them feeling is not jealousy so much as resentment. And so you give them a little bit more money, and then they start feeling sort of demanding. And so we don't think even putting in the picture the idea of getting the money and then sharing it with them is such a good idea, because you've already set up in your own vibration your inability to imagine them being all right with the money that's coming. And so we would just leave that part out of the equation altogether. Okay. It would be far easier for you to clean up your vibration by saying, hey, we're all hooked to the same energy stream. We all have access to the same flow of abundance. I figured out how to get my valve open. Hopefully by the power of my example, you'll figure out how to get your valve open, but your abundance does not flow through my valve. Your abundance flows directly through your valve. And so the work you've got to do is, we think that it would be so much easier for you to just move up the emotional scale so that you don't feel guilty, rather than having to go from guilt to resentment, because guilt and resentment are almost the identical vibration on the vibrational frequency scale, you see. How it feels to imagine yourself having money and this person watching you succeed. Just give us some words, maybe from past experience.
Okay. Any success, the hand comes out and they want to have equal or more of what the success is given.
And how does that, what is the emotion that accompanies that for you?
Anger, because that person's past that hasn't been that way.
All right, so now does it feel like anger to you? And let's poke around here and make sure. So is it anger? Is it powerlessness? In other words, do you feel power? Do you think that what we're really talking about here is your desire to make them happy, and that you feel powerless to do that? Or do you think you've got a desire percolating to make them prosperous and you feel powerless to do that?
Well, that's the kicker. I want to be prosperous and abundant so I can help them achieve the life they want. But I hear you. That is not my responsibility. But how do I be abundant with my valve open and all loving and all joying, and gently have them support me and I support them?
Well, we think your trouble is you don't need to support them and they don't need to support you. You're wanting to teach that autonomy that comes from connecting with source energy. You all have access to the same energy stream.
So it's not my problem.
And so we think that what's happened here, we don't think your problem is the $10 million either. Right. We think that the reason that you're choosing that as this point of discussion is because somehow you think that their happiness is tied to your happiness and your happiness is tied to them, or their success is tied to you and yours is tied to them. And of course, as an uplifter, you want to thrive and you want all others to thrive. And the more you find ways of thriving, the more you want to be in a place where you can assist others in doing it.